Mm-hmm. All right, on to this now. He has led in Sacramento, Irvine, and Orange County. And now Orange County Supervisor Don Wagner wants to be California's next Secretary of State. Why this office and why now? Republican candidate Don Wagner joins us live right now to talk about it. Congrats on the campaign. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to be back with you, Alex. Thank you.
So for people that don't know, the Secretary of State is in charge of elections for California. Why this particular office for you?
So the answer to why now and why this office is exactly that. The Secretary of State is responsible for elections in the state of California. The Secretary also has a major role in businesses, but let's talk for a moment about elections. And there is widespread dissatisfaction throughout the state of California with the way elections are being run in California. We're seeing it taking forever for us to count votes. We're among the last, if not the dead last state to report election results. We're finding ourselves absolutely awash in ballots. There are questions about election integrity. We've seen lawsuits against registrars in counties that show there are in some places more voters registered than there are people living in the county. And so there's widespread dissatisfaction. In addition, we're going to see in California, I expect in November of 2026, an effort to bring to California what most other states in this union have, and that is voter ID. The idea that this office is going to be at the center of all of those issues. And my expectation is my opponent will continue to be on the wrong side of all of those issues. It's time to have somebody in that office who will do what the people want and make sure our elections are free, they are fair, they are counted timely, and that everybody who is entitled to vote can, but that nobody who is not entitled to vote is really in our elections and diluting our votes. So now is the time to have a fix, and it needs to start from the Secretary of State's office.
So the current Secretary of State is your opponent, Shirley Weber, who is a Democrat. She would say, look, all these moves have increased participation in our elections. And yes, it takes a little longer to count votes because we're giving people time to mail in their ballots. We're giving people time to register the same day. But there has not been examples of widespread fraud in elections. And so we'd rather have it take longer if it gets more people involved. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that is that you can have both. The fact is, you know, if you remember a couple of years ago, there was a wide outcry about changes made in Georgia to their election system to the point where Major League Baseball moved the All-Star game from Georgia to Colorado. Forget for a minute that Colorado had even more draconian, such as they are, rules than Georgia. And the thought was, oh my goodness, people aren't going to vote. And we saw, in fact, an increase in votes in the state of Georgia as a result of those elections. What we do with these changes is not discourage people from voting, but rather encourage them. Because I can tell you, Alex, I have run for office and knocked on doors, and I've supported very good people, and I've campaigned for them and knocked on doors, and I hear voters say to me, why should I vote? They're just not going to count it. They're just going to steal it. I don't believe that's happening in the state of California. I do not believe we have widespread voter fraud in California. But if the public feels that their vote is not going to be counted and they're not going to vote as a result, then we have a problem. And what I want to say to them is, come on out, because I promise you, the vote that doesn't get cast is the vote that doesn't get counted. Come on out. We're going to get you timely results that you can trust.
But doesn't the leader of the Republican Party have some blame on that? President Trump has repeatedly said that there's widespread fraud in California. He said if Jesus was counting the ballots, he would have won here. Well, doesn't he have some responsibility in some of that distrust in the system?
I don't get to speak for the President of the United States. And to the extent that he says that in California, I mean, look, Donald Trump did not win California in the last election cycle. I'm sorry, Mr. President, you didn't win California. I will say, however, that the folks out there in the cities that are actually casting these votes themselves are distrustful of the system. And whether it's Donald Trump's fault or it's the current Secretary of State's fault or it's nobody's fault, it is a real thing. And California deserves a Secretary of State who recognizes that the voters feel this way and wants to do what that secretary can to fix that problem.
So what's the #1 change you make day one you become Secretary of State that you can actually implement in that job when it comes to elections?
Well, day one, I am expecting voter ID to pass. And I am also expecting, because I've seen it before in Sacramento, that folks like whoever is our governor or our attorney general will file a lawsuit to stop it. And I am pledging the people of California that if you support voter ID and if it passes in the state of California, the Secretary of State will be an ally in your fight. The other things we can do is recognize, for example, that the state of California is awash in ballots. And it's awash in ballots because COVID, we decided that we would mail ballots to everybody. Maybe during COVID that was necessary. I don't think so, but okay, it was. We are post-COVID. There's nothing wrong with doing what more than 30 states in this nation do and saying, if you want to vote absentee, ask for it. It's not hard to do. But we will also find that if we do more day of voting, or if we have voting polling places open for a month or so, as the state does, and we get more in-person ballots, the surprising thing is more votes get counted quickly because of that change. Because right now, with all these mail-in ballots, it takes time to open them and verify signatures and start processing them. And so a change would be, let's not mail ballots to everybody. Let's instead encourage day of and in-person voting, which will in fact help not only assure people that their votes count, but it will also speed up the process.
And of course, if you get your way, that in-person voting would have the ID associated with it as an extra security precaution. Don Wagner, thanks so much for sharing your views, and good luck out there on the campaign trail.
Al, it's my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity to chat with you.
All right. Marla, over to you.